Let's get a word on migration now, because that really is a bit of a thread. Keir Starmer speaking shortly on this. Isabel Oakeshott, talk's International Editor, is with us. Isabel, good afternoon to you.
Hi, I'm really intrigued as to what Keir Starmer is going to come up with. I mean, he clearly senses, unusually, he's got his finger on the pulse in sensing that the nation is absolutely mutinous over these latest immigration figures, because they truly are astonishing. I think there was a general expectation at Westminster that figures would be quite significantly lower than what was published today. And not only are those figures astonishing in and of themselves, but we've also got the ONS, the Office for National Statistics, admitting that they got their figures wrong to the tune of over 200,000, which begs the question of how are we supposed to trust any of these figures that are coming out? So I don't know what Keir Starmer can possibly come out with now that is going to make many people feel a lot better, since you can't reverse all this huge influx. These people are mostly here to stay. But I personally, and I think a lot of people, would like to hear him say something pretty robust on the use of the benefit system by newcomers to our country. There are levers that are at the disposal of the government to stop this having such an enormous impact on the public purse.
Now, of course, it was a strange morning, wasn't it? Because we were bombarded with sort of stats. Suddenly we get this, net migration has gone down. You think, OK, well, we'll examine those figures. And then another one comes through going, oh, yeah, but the year before, by the way, we got it all horribly wrong. And it was actually much higher than we thought. So that sort of gives another context. And then we were told, well, actually, even though this one has gone down, but this might get revised as well. So that might also go back up like last year. I mean, what are they doing over there, for goodness sake? Do they need a calculator or an abacus?
Well, what they need is an actual system for assessing who's in and who's out of the country. And we just don't have an accurate way, it seems, of recording that. Now, I don't know why this is so difficult. We're a pretty modern country with modern passport systems for coming in and out and so on. I mean, other countries don't seem to have such a problem calculating who's in and who's out. They take records when people leave the country. But the truth is that, as these statistics show, since they're, casually tell us that they somehow were mistaken to the tune of 200,000+ people, the truth is we don't have our government doesn't have any idea what the real figures are. And there will be a lot of people who strongly suspect that even the figures that we're being given now are a gross underestimate. And, for anybody to headline on the fact that net migration is falling, I think is gaslighting the British people to a truly deplorable extent, because we all feel it. Look at the state of the country. You can feel that everything is under an awful lot of pressure. The actual crowding in urban areas is something that I've never seen before in my lifetime. It's very, very noticeable and demonstrable. So don't tell the British people that net migration is falling and they should therefore be relieved and thankful for that. The counter to all of this from the government would be, and the previous government, I mean, I'm sure there's a little bit of Rishi Sunak's going, see, I told you I'd get it down. It's down 20%. He will, I'm sure, tacitly be claiming some kind of victory on that. But the argument goes that this is legal migration. So these are quite a lot of students in there, people who've got visas to come and work here. They're not likely to have been given a visa, even though I know we like to think it sometimes happens, but they're not likely to get one just so they can become an Every or an Amazon driver. It'll be more than that. Some will blame Boris Johnson and say, as a result of, post-COVID and all the rest of it, the visas that were given out, particularly for social care and those kind of areas, was off the scale. But whichever way you slice it, Isabel, this is the legit stuff. This isn't the channel crossing. These are people that are either coming to work in whatever capacity or learn. So what do we do about that? I'm loving your sweet naivety in accepting that.
I'm not accepting it. I'm giving you their version of how this would be
you're not actually totally giving the version. Let me pick up on one aspect of that, which you have to read the small print to get.
Go on.
So you said about coming over to work. Well, actually, the number of people that have come over as dependents on those who have been issued work visas is higher than the actual number who were issued the work visas. In other words, we're importing more people who are coming.
And there's the problem, right? That's the big problem here.
To one person who is allegedly going to do some work. As for the studying, that is an absolute racket and a scandal that is still waiting to be fully exposed. So many of these people are signing up to courses, and the colleges are all absolutely up to their necks in this. They are paying a certain number of fees, and it is a way to come to Britain. They don't do any of the course, they don't do the studying, and it is all a gigantic industry.
Who do we blame that? I mean, you're right on that, and we've talked about the course thing. You know, I know education is a valuable industry of ours, but that doesn't mean to say that it's not abused, and that's a great example of how it is. Boris Johnson and the giving out visas for social care and the like. The problem is that if you give out a visa for social care, then someone's going to come over here from, I don't know, Nigeria or France. Then they're going to probably want to bring their family with them, right? If we're saying we need you to come here, they're going to come with their family. How do we as a nation ever address that other than convincing indigenous people to go and work in social care?
Well, frankly, you just say no. I mean, there are plenty of countries that import lots of workers without importing their families. I mean, it's a completely extraordinary idea.
But if you're going for good, if you're going to literally move to another part of the world, you're going to go with your family, right?
Well, I don't think we're necessarily...
Not your aunties and your uncles and your cousins, but you're going to want to go with your spouse.
I think we don't need to import people to be here permanently.
I 100% agree, and that's where it falls to Boris Johnson and the like.
Plenty of countries grant visas for a period of, let's say, 2 to 5 years to fill gaps in the labour market that they can't fill with their own populations. You don't see those people bringing their spouses, their children,
That's what we should have been doing, isn't it? Having a caveat on this.
Completely. They come and they make the money and they send the money home, and that's brilliant, and it works for everyone. At the end of their visa, they go home. And that allows the British economy and labour market to actually adjust and train up its own people to fill gaps. We've got a ludicrous situation where we're paying welfare to millions of people who could do some of this work. Not all of them
100%.
Could do some of it.
One of the other areas, of course, you've forgotten in all of this, Isabel, is that although these headlines are damning, you've forgotten about the 728,000 new homes that were built during this time, the accompanying doctors' surgeries, all the wonderful schools that were also built at this time. So, at least we got the infrastructure to go with it. Oh, sorry, actually, no, we didn't get any of the infrastructure to go with it. That's the problem, right?
You only need to look around you to see that hasn't happened. And it is literally in the crowding, whether it's on the streets, on the trains, in the stations, on the roads, in the queues for the doctor, in the attempts to get your children into the best school that you can in your local area. All of this is clogged up in a totally frustrating fashion for those who have paid into the system and now feel that they're basically being shunted aside by a bunch of low-skilled no-skilled incomers. And here's
perhaps the overarching horrifying stat of all. Bearing in mind these are people that, some may be on a limited visa, but essentially people who are here to live, outweighing the amount of people that leave the country. 906,000 2023. To June 2024, another 728,000. And these are the conservative figures. So we've already got 1.7 million out of that. Next year, apparently, the figures will look pretty much the same, is the projection. So that's going to be 2-point-something million. These aren't people that are coming here for 6 weeks and leaving. So just in that one time frame of about 2.5, 3 years, we are talking about 2.5 million extra people that will have arrived to live in this country.
I mean, these figures are completely insane. We're an island, and actually you can't really build loads and loads of houses in the Cairngorms or in the Peak District. Let's be realistic about what we can and can't accommodate. Here's another statistic from those figures that were released today that I think is really shocking. And it is that 86% of that net migration is non-EU. And those who opposed Brexit will be very gleeful about this, and they'll be saying, yay, see, you idiots that backed Brexit, all that's happened is you're bringing in people from far-flung places in the world that have no cultural affinity with the UK, etc., etc. And to some extent, you know what, they'd be right, because Brexit was never intended to mean that we didn't have the brightest and best, either from all over the world, but including from the EU. And we absolutely opened the floodgates to everybody outside the EU. I mean, what a complete and utter joke.
Indeed. While you're with us, Isabel, I'm bound to ask you, a lot going on domestically in terms of politics, a Conservative defection from the Tories to Reform UK. What do you make of this Andrea Jenkyns move?
Well, I actually think what's more important is the numbers of people joining Reform as paid-up members, and that may be less headline-grabbing, but 100,000 people, that puts the Reform Party not too far behind where we think the Conservative Party is. I think the Conservative Party is on 130-something thousand.
Yeah.
If you look at the trajectory, that means that Reform may very, very well quite soon catch up the Conservative Party, and that is deeply, deeply worrying for Kemi Badenoch and her new regime.
Indeed, of course, perhaps the start of many who are going to be making that journey. I know Andrea is no longer an MP. I think she was going to stand, or is going to stand for a mayoral position in the future, but as a Reform candidate now, I guess.
That's right. And I think that it may well be the start of many, because the Conservative Party is very, very divided. It's two camps, and it remains to be seen how that will shake down under its new leadership, and whether there will be, a number of others from the Andrea Jenkyns wing of the party, if you like, the sort of more of the right-wing side of the Conservative Party, that just feel they have no home within a party that quite manifestly has never been able to do what it promised on immigration in particular. Yeah. And doesn't inspire any confidence or trust in anyone that they'd be able to do it a second time. And
I can't imagine, other than, so I couldn't even think of the right word for a second, there's so much going on here, other than some, events, dear boy events and all of that going on, it looks as if the direction of travel, Isabel, is that Reform will be seeing a bit more of this. And I'm looking as well at, I know it's only week 3 for Kemi Badenoch over there at Westminster as the leader of the opposition. We know she's, got a very sharp brain. We know she shoots from the hip, and, there's a lot of people that like that. But but when it comes to, giving the Prime Minister a real bloody nose, that sense of, can you imagine Nigel Farage standing on the other side of the dispatch box, what that would look like compared to what we're currently getting? And I just sense that I don't know whether Kemi's going to up her game a bit, but I'm not hopeful.
Okay, I'm going to be a bit more generous. I actually think she's been quite good, but it's always very different when you watch something in the chamber to when you're actually watching it on TV. And I think she's been certainly more interesting and exciting than what we've had for a while from the Tory leadership. And haven't we been through many of them? So I do feel that she could give Keir Starmer a bit more of a run for his money. I think he looks weaker and worse, by the week, if that's possible. And so there's a great opportunity for the Conservatives here. But her problem, as I was just saying a minute ago, is that she's basically leading two completely different parties. And how can she bring that together? Yeah. Itself doesn't believe in leaving the ECHR, which is one of the main tools at our disposal to tackle this immigration issue with asylum seekers in particular.
Well, it certainly won't be dull over there over the next few years. We'll watch with interest. Isabel, as ever, thank you.